My father slammed his fist on the table and shouted, "You be living on the streets without us." After I asked my brother to quit stealing my things, so I moved out. Can you imagine your own father slamming his fist on the table, screaming, "You be homeless without us," simply because I asked my freeloading brother to stop stealing my food? What if I told you that moment of pure rage was the spark that ignited the complete destruction of our family? A destruction I quietly, meticulously orchestrated. Before everything boiled over, before it all fell apart, I should probably start at the beginning. My name's Lucas. I'm 27, and I grew up in a family where love always had a price tag. I'm the oldest of three, and from a young age, I was treated more like an unpaid intern than a son. My parents, especially my dad, believed that respect was earned, but obedience was demanded. And if you were the oldest, well, your obedience came with interest on top. You were expected to set the example, keep the peace, hold things together, even when nobody else lifted a finger. Growing up, I honestly thought this was normal. That all parents guilt-tripped their kids into cleaning the house while calling it teaching responsibility, or made them pay rent at 17 because life doesn't give handouts. We weren't poor, far from it. My dad worked in construction management and my mom had a remote admin job. We had a decent house, a backyard, always enough for birthday parties, new clothes, and dinners out. But they had this mindset, this obsession with hardening us for the real world. Only that hardness was always directed at me. My siblings? Not so much. My brother, Tyler, 2 years younger, could crash his car into a mailbox and somehow be the victim in the story. My sister, Ella, still in high school, had a room full of electronics I couldn't even dream of affording at her age. Meanwhile, I had to fight to get Wi-Fi that worked in my basement room, which I paid rent for. $400 a month, to be exact. I started working when I was 15. First, a part-time gig at a local grocery store, bagging. Then stocking shelves at a department store while I finished high school. My parents made it clear that if I want a car, gas money, or anything beyond the bare minimum, it was on me. When I got my license, I used my savings to buy a rusted-out 2002 Toyota Corolla. My dad smirked and said, "Looks like you're finally learning how the real world works." I thought he was proud of me. In hindsight, I think he just liked the idea of me struggling. It reinforced his belief that the world was cruel and that kids should man up early. After high school, I didn't go straight to college. I didn't have the money, and my parents weren't offering. If you want a degree, my dad said, get a job that pays for it. Or take loans. You're not living here for free while you figure yourself out. So I worked. Warehouse jobs. Night shifts. Delivery gigs. Anything to keep paying my rent and saving a little bit at a time. Eventually, I started doing IT certifications online. I taught myself networking, server admin, cybersecurity basics. It wasn't easy, especially working 40+ hours a week while trying to study, but I made it work. By the time I was 24, I landed a full-time remote job doing tech support and network management for a mid-sized company. It didn't pay six figures, but it was stable, and it was mine. I finally had a little breathing room. I was still living in the basement, still handing over rent like clockwork, and still getting passive-aggressive comments every time I missed a family dinner because of overtime. But at least I wasn't scrambling anymore. I started thinking about moving out, getting my own place, maybe even going back to school part-time to finish a degree. Then the pandemic hit. Suddenly, Tyler lost his job as a barback and moved back home. My parents, who had always insisted I pay rent because life's not fair, decided he didn't need to contribute. He's going through a lot, my mom said. It's not the time to add pressure. Ella, now taking classes online from home, started sleeping till noon and blasting TikTok at full volume through the walls. Meanwhile, I kept working, still paying rent, still contributing to groceries, still getting guilt-tripped every time I asked for some quiet during Zoom meetings. It was like being a guest in a hotel I was secretly funding, except the staff hated me and the other guests got room service. It got worse when Tyler started making jabs about my job. Must be nice to work in your pajamas, he'd sneer while drinking the coffee I bought. Or, some of us have real jobs, Lucas. Physical labor, not mouse clicking. My dad would chuckle like it was some inside joke. He's not wrong, he said once. If the power goes out, what are you going to do? You're not exactly essential. I wanted to scream. Instead, I just nodded and kept going. One night, I came upstairs after a long shift. I'd been putting out fires all day, Server crashes, phishing attacks, 2 coworkers out sick. I was fried. I just wanted to make a sandwich and watch something mindless. But when I opened the fridge, half the stuff I'd bought was gone. My protein shakes, my chicken, my prepped meals. Gone. I turned around to see Tyler on the couch, shirtless, burping up what I knew was my food. "You're welcome," he said, without looking away from the TV. I asked him, calmly at first, why he kept taking my groceries when he didn't contribute anything. He just laughed. "What's mine is yours, bro. That's what family's for." I brought it up to my parents that night at dinner. Not accusingly, not even angrily. I just asked if we could set some boundaries, maybe label food, make a schedule, something. That's when my dad slammed his hand on the table. "You're acting like a damn guest in your own home," he snapped. "You think you're better than your brother because you've got some desk job and a certificate? You'd be homeless without us. You live here because we allow you to. Don't forget that." I didn't say a word. Not then. I just stood up, walked to the basement, closed the door, and sat on my bed for a long time. Something about that night felt different. It wasn't the first time my dad had pulled that card, but this time it didn't sting the same way. It didn't feel like failure. It felt like clarity. That was the moment I knew I wasn't staying here much longer. But if I was going to leave, I wasn't going to leave quietly. And I definitely wasn't going to keep funding their lives while they treated me like an afterthought. So I started planning. And 2 months later, when the lights flickered off in the middle of their movie night, and their credit cards started getting declined left and right, they finally realized something was wrong. But by then, I was already gone. And what I did before I left? Well, let's just say they weren't expecting that. I didn't leave the next day. I wanted to. After my dad's outburst at dinner, something in me felt cracked wide open. Like I'd finally woken up from years of trying to earn their respect, trying to be the good son who paid rent, cooked meals, did the yard work, and smiled through the disrespect like it was just part of growing up. But when I sat in my basement room that night, staring at the gray concrete wall next to my desk, I realized I needed a plan. Not just an escape. Leaving wasn't just about packing a bag. My name was on more things than I like to admit. The family Wi-Fi, under my name. Electricity bill, split in my online account, but I was the only one actually paying it on time. The streaming services, all on my cards. The food in the fridge, mine. Half of it gone within a day. At some point, without even noticing, I had become a crutch for the whole house. Financially, emotionally, logistically. And it wasn't like they noticed. The next morning, I woke up to Ella stomping around upstairs. Apparently, her AirPods had gone missing. I climbed the stairs and walked into a full-blown interrogation. "Did you take them?" she asked, standing in the hallway with her arms crossed, glaring at me like I was a suspect. "Maybe," she said, "because I borrowed your speaker last week and never gave it back and you got mad about it." I stared at her. That was her logic. She wronged me, so now I must be retaliating. "I didn't take anything. Ask Tyler." She scoffed and walked away, muttering something under her breath that sounded a lot like freak. I didn't even flinch. Later that day, I got a Venmo request from my mom. $48.67 for household groceries. No explanation. No prior discussion. Just a demand in the form of a payment request. And the best part? I had already done the grocery run 2 days earlier and spent $80 of my own money on essentials. Eggs, milk, chicken, soap, stuff. No one thanked me for stuff I watched disappear in record time. I declined the request. 30 minutes later, I got a text. "Mom, did you decline the payment on purpose?" Me, yes. "Mom, that's not okay, Lucas. We all have to contribute." Me, I do contribute. I just bought groceries. "Mom, that was your choice. This is for the stuff I bought." She didn't respond after that. But that night during dinner, there was a different energy. Colder. My mom didn't speak to me. My dad cleared his throat aggressively every few minutes, like he was itching to say something but trying to hold back. Ella had her phone out and took photos of the mashed potatoes, probably to post some fake family bonding story. And then Tyler decided to play the role of provocateur. "I heard you're not paying Mom back," he said, casually stabbing at his chicken. I didn't answer. Kind of low, considering she raised you. Still, I stayed silent. "Lucas," my dad said. Voice sharp. "Answer." Your brother. I'm not answering anyone at this table like it's a courtroom, I replied. You're under a roof, my dad snapped. We ask, you answer. I stood up. Then maybe I won't be under your roof much longer. My mom finally spoke. Where are you going to go, Lucas? You think you're ready to be on your own? Everything you have is because of us. And there it was. Because of us. Like my job, my savings, my sleepless nights studying while they slept upstairs. None of it counted. Like I'd been given a scholarship to life, and they were the generous donors. I didn't say another word. I left the table and walked straight back downstairs. That night I started pulling numbers. I looked at my bank account, calculated what it would take to get a small apartment, started browsing listings for studio rentals on the other side of town. I called a couple of friends quietly, cautiously, just to ask about their buildings, about availability. I created a checklist. Transfer Wi-Fi, remove autopays, separate my cards from their bills. I knew it would take a few weeks to untangle myself, but I was determined to do it right. To leave clean, silent, without burning a bridge, but without ever walking back across it. The next week, I started slowly transferring utilities out of my name. I contacted the internet provider and told them I was moving. They gave me a cutoff date. 2 weeks. Perfect. Electricity? I emailed, removed myself as a primary user, and let the account default to the household. My dad would receive the next bill. He'd figure it out eventually. Meanwhile, life upstairs went on as usual. Tyler continued eating my groceries. Ella borrowed my headphones and never gave them back. My mom sent me another Venmo request, $23.14 this time. I ignored it. Then came the boiling point. It was a Thursday evening. I'd been in meetings most of the day, and I came upstairs just as dinner was wrapping up. I wasn't expecting food. At this point, I was cooking my own meals anyway. But I noticed something odd. Laughter. The kind I hadn't heard in a while. That strange, fake family joy that only surfaced when something juicy was happening. My dad was sitting at the head of the table, grinning. Tyler was scrolling on his phone. My mom had a smug little smile, and Ella was whispering to her from across the table. As I walked into the kitchen, I saw the envelope. It was open. My name was on the front. I picked it up and saw the logo of my company, my recent pay stub. They had opened my mail. I froze. My chest tightened, heart thudding in that way it does when you feel like you're being watched. Lucas, my dad said. You didn't tell us you were making that much. I looked at him, then at the opened envelope. I didn't say anything. Maybe you should be paying a little more rent, he continued, smug. We're all struggling here. I looked at my mom. You opened my mail. She had the audacity to shrug. It came to our house. It had my name on it. We were just curious, Tyler added. Relax. It's not like we hacked your bank account. You crossed a line, I said, my voice quiet but hard. Oh, don't be so dramatic, my dad snapped. We've supported you your whole life. You think you can keep secrets from us now? I stepped back, my fists clenched. Not in anger, but in something deeper. Something final. There was no coming back from this. They had invaded my privacy, laughed at my success, and now they were using it as ammunition against me. That's when the idea finally solidified in my mind, not just to leave, but to really leave. To take everything I'd given them and pull it back like a tablecloth from under their feet. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I just nodded. And I said, okay. They all looked at me, confused. What does that mean? My mom asked. It means you're right, I said, stepping away. I shouldn't keep secrets from you. And then I walked out of the room. But what I didn't say was that I had already found a place, that I had already signed a lease, that in 3 days I was moving out and taking every single thing I had paid for with me. And when the bills started bouncing and the fridge was empty and their Amazon Prime stopped working, they'd realize exactly what I meant. But I wasn't done yet, because there was one more thing I was going to do before I left, something they would never see coming. I didn't sleep that night, not really. I lay in bed, fully clothed, staring at the ceiling with the dull hum of the server fan beside my desk keeping me company. My mind replayed everything. My dad's smirk, Tyler's laugh, my open mail lying on the counter like it belonged to everyone but me. There was this heaviness in my chest, the kind that didn't come from sadness exactly, but from exhaustion. Years of trying to keep the peace, trying to be the strong one, the provider, the fixer. All of it had chipped away at me until there was barely anything left to give. And now they wanted more. 3 days. That was all I had to get everything ready. I'd already signed the lease on a small one-bedroom apartment on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, second floor, older building, the kind of place you wouldn't look twice at from the street, but it was clean, quiet, and most importantly, mine. No basement, no passive-aggressive sighs through the ceiling, no family meetings disguised as interventions. Just a space where my things stayed where I left them, and my paychecks belonged to me. But I couldn't just walk out the front door. That would be too easy. I had to move quietly, methodically. If they sensed something was coming, they'd try to sabotage it. Maybe not directly, but in those subtle little ways they'd perfected over the years. Lucas, we need your help with this bill. Lucas, can you drive Ella to school? Lucas, the Wi-Fi's down. Can you call them again? Just enough to slow me down. Just enough to keep me useful. So I moved in silence. On Friday, I scheduled the Wi-Fi to shut off Monday morning. Canceled the streaming services that I paid for, Netflix, Hulu, Disney+, all of it. They were all linked to my email. They wouldn't even know why they were gone until the Who's Watching screen failed to load. I stopped the autopay on the electricity and gas. I switched my Amazon account to a pickup locker near my new apartment. I even swapped the billing address on my debit card. No more shared mailboxes. Saturday, I packed slowly, a little at a time, a few books here, my hard drives there. I boxed up my monitor and left my backup one hooked up so it wouldn't look suspicious. Every time I brought a load out to my car, I'd park a block away just in case someone peeked out the window. I felt like I was sneaking out of a place I was never supposed to escape from. And then Sunday came. I left early, before anyone was up, took the final load, clothes, towels, kitchen supplies. The last thing I grabbed was a photo frame off my desk. It was a picture of me from graduation, cap crooked, smile uncertain. My parents stood behind me in that photo, arms on my shoulders. Back then, I thought that meant support. Now, I saw it differently, like they were holding me down. I placed the frame face down on the desk. And then I drove. It took me less than 15 minutes to get to my new place, but those 15 minutes felt longer than the last 15 years. Every stoplight was a countdown. Every turn was a step towards something bigger than just a new address. It was freedom. Or, at least the hope of it. When I opened the door to my apartment, it smelled like paint and dust. The furniture I ordered wasn't arriving until Tuesday, so for now it was just me, 2 boxes, and a mattress I bought secondhand. But it was quiet, peaceful. I could hear the distant sound of a dog barking in the courtyard. Someone upstairs was watching a basketball game. I didn't mind. It wasn't hostile. It wasn't minefield silence. It was normal. I sat on the floor for a long time that day, leaning against the wall, laptop open, watching the sunlight crawl across the hardwood. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel small. But rebuilding doesn't happen in a single afternoon. That first week was rough, emotionally, I mean. There's something terrifying about sitting alone in an empty apartment with no one to ask what's for dinner or how your day was. I wasn't used to silence that didn't have teeth. My mind kept flashing back to every conversation I ever had with my family, where I let something slide, every moment I let them diminish me, every time I thought, maybe if I just try a little harder, they'll see me. I realized something painful that week. They did see me. They just didn't value me. And that hurt more than I expected. By day 3, I caught myself reaching for my phone, half expecting to see a text from my mom asking if I was okay, or my dad offering some weird backhanded apology. But there was nothing. Just silence. Like I'd never existed in that house at all. It should have made me angry. Instead, it made me determined. I started working harder, smarter. I restructured my work hours, set up a better workstation, built out a new resume just in case I wanted to climb somewhere new. I signed up for an online class, cybersecurity audit certification, something I'd put off for over a year. Without their noise in my head, I could think again. I was sleeping better, too. No more waking up to Ella's music or Tyler's gaming. Chair creaking at 3 a.m. Every little win started to feel bigger. Cooking my own meals. Managing my own schedule. Watching a movie, without someone barging in. It sounds ridiculous, but freedom has a taste, and I was finally learning it. Then came the messages. They didn't realize I was gone until the power went out. First, it was my mom. Mom, Lucas, the electricity's not working. Can you call the company? Mom, Lucas? Mom, We're sitting in the dark. Did you forget to pay it? I didn't reply. Then Tyler messaged. Tyler, bro, the Wi-Fi's down. What the hell? Tyler. Are you even home, Tyler? Mom's freaking out. Still, I said nothing. The next morning, I woke up to 6 missed calls and a voicemail from my dad. His voice was different, less sure of himself. That faux authority stripped down to uncertainty. Lucas, listen, we need to talk. Things have gotten a little complicated. There's been a misunderstanding, clearly. You can't just cut off everything like this. That's not how families work. Call me back. I stared at the phone. That's not how families work. And yet, they'd been doing exactly that to me for years. Emotionally, financially, spiritually. The irony would have been funny if it didn't sting so much. A week passed, then another. I stopped checking their messages, focused on my classes, improved my work metrics. My manager actually noticed and gave me a bonus, said he liked the new energy I brought to the team. I smiled and said, thank you. But inside, I knew the truth. I wasn't just working better. I was living better. Every day, I grew a little more distant from the version of myself that used to live in that basement. That version who kept asking, why can't they love me the way I love them? The version who made himself smaller to keep the peace. The version who paid rent just to avoid being called ungrateful. He was gone now, and in his place was someone new. Someone who had just learned how powerful it is to be done. But the story doesn't end there. Because just when I thought I could finally move on, something happened. Something I didn't expect. Something that made me realize this wasn't just about leaving anymore. It was about making sure they never treated someone else the way they treated me, and I had the power to do that. Because I knew things they didn't think I remembered. I had access to accounts they'd forgotten I managed. And when I checked my old inbox one random night out of curiosity, I saw an email thread that stopped me cold. An old, forgotten chain between my dad and someone he owed money to. An account I used to be linked to. And buried in that thread was the real reason why he was so angry that I left. It wasn't just about the money I brought in. It was about the money he needed. And the secret he'd been hiding for years. And suddenly, the game changed. They thought I just walked away. But I hadn't. I was just getting started. I sat at my desk in the new apartment, surrounded by the soft blue glow of dual monitors and a quiet that still didn't feel real. It had been almost a month since I left, and most days I felt like I was finally exhaling after years of holding my breath. But that night, after reading the email buried deep in my old inbox, I wasn't calm. I wasn't free. I was focused. The email was from nearly 2 years ago. A debt collection notice. My dad had used my name, my credit, to open a joint line of credit for a home improvement project he never completed. The balance was small back then, just under $3,000, but it had grown. Interest. Missed payments. Late fees. The collection agency had stopped emailing me directly because I had switched accounts, but my name had stayed on the debt. He hadn't removed it. He hadn't even told me. And now I knew why he was panicking after I left. It wasn't about me cutting off the Wi-Fi or canceling the Netflix subscription. It was about losing access to the person who was unknowingly tied to his financial mess. He hadn't just taken advantage of my presence. He'd built a safety net out of me. Quietly, selfishly, illegally. My hands shook as I clicked through the old thread. I had vague memories of signing something for the house when I was around 23, back when I was still working night shifts and hoping to move into the guest room upstairs. He told me it was just a paperwork formality to add value to the home. I was naive, tired, trusting. And I signed. Now I understood. My dad had tied me to a credit line without telling me what it really was. He hadn't made a single payment on it in over 6 months. And because I'd moved out and stopped forwarding my old email, I hadn't seen the new notices piling up. If I hadn't checked that inbox, I might have never known. But now I did. And that changed everything. I sat back, staring at the monitor, heart pounding. Part of me wanted to scream. Another part of me wanted to call him, demand answers, threaten legal action, force a confession. But I didn't. That wasn't me anymore. I wasn't interested in emotional outbursts. I was interested in strategy. So I made a plan. Step 1 was gathering everything. I printed the email thread, saved all the attachments, and pulled my credit report. There it was, right under Open Accounts, a joint revolving credit line with a balance of $6,882.47 and a credit utilization rate that made me wince. It was dragging my score down, quietly poisoning my financial future. He thought I wouldn't find out. He was wrong. I called the credit company the next day, calm, polite, professional. I'm calling about a joint line of credit that was opened under my name. I need to request documentation and formally dispute the account. The representative paused. Are you saying you didn't authorize the account? I signed something under the impression it was for something else, I said carefully. I need to review the original application and statement of purpose. They sent it over within the hour. There it was, my signature, my social security number, my dad's handwriting filling in the rest. I called a friend of mine next, Kara. We hadn't spoken in a few months, but she worked in consumer advocacy law. When I explained the situation, she didn't sound surprised. This happens more than you think, she said, especially with families. Is it illegal? Gray area, depending on what you signed, but you can file a dispute. And if you're serious about pushing back, you can freeze your credit, request identity theft protection, and force the account to be re-reviewed. Would that affect him? She hesitated. If the account was only being paid by him and you dispute your part, he'll be fully liable. And it'll trigger a full investigation into the missed payments. Could tank his credit. I nodded slowly. Good. Kara paused. Lucas, is this revenge? I smiled faintly. No, this is step one. She laughed softly. You always were the quiet type. Not anymore. I spent the next week compiling documents. Copies of every utility bill I'd paid for while living at home. Screenshots of every Venmo transfer to my mom. Text threads. Emails. I created a timeline, a paper trail that showed exactly how much I'd been contributing over the years, how deep my involvement ran, and how little appreciation I got in return. This wasn't just a petty tally sheet. It was proof of exploitation, of dependence, of intent. I wasn't going to sue them, not yet. That wasn't the point. But I wanted leverage. Real leverage. Because while I could live with the way they treated me emotionally, I couldn't accept that they were sabotaging my credit and future behind my back. That crossed a line even they couldn't gaslight away. The next step was subtler. My mom still had me on her emergency contact list for her job, for Ella's school, even for the shared online calendar she used for family events. I started backing away from each of those, quietly. I removed myself from every system I could think of. Her workplace? I emailed HR and rescinded my contact permission. Ella's school? I logged into the portal and deleted my access. Calendar? Locked. Then came Tyler. He hadn't paid taxes in 2 years, and I knew because I'd helped him file the year before last. He kept asking me to look over his stuff whenever April came around, but he never followed through. Now I logged into the software we used, still under my email, and saw a draft return just sitting there untouched. No income reported. And I knew something he didn't. If you let a year go unfiled, and you then file a return that shows undeclared income, the IRS notices. Fast. So I submitted a quiet, anonymous tip through their reporting site. I wasn't trying to ruin his life. I was just cutting the cord. Then came Ella. She was too young to do anything damaging, but I knew she was using my old Spotify account, still logged in on her iPad. So I changed the password. Same with the Disney Plus account she used to stream her favorite shows. Logged everyone out, changed the email, set up two-factor. She texted me the next day. Ella, did you log me out of Spotify? I ignored it. Ella, that's messed up. I ignored that too. 2 hours later, I got a message from my mom. Mom, what's going on with the accounts? I replied once. I'm moving on. No response after that. Then finally came the confrontation. I got home late one Friday night from a grocery run. My apartment building is small, only 8 units, and there's no buzzing system. Just a locked main door with old mailboxes stacked beside it. I was juggling bags when I saw a car pull up. Silver Honda. Familiar. My dad. He got out like he owned the place, eyes scanning until he spotted me. Lucas, he called. We need to talk. I didn't move, just looked at him. He stepped closer. We made mistakes. Okay, I get it. You're upset. But this disappearing act, this silent treatment isn't fair. You don't get to abandon your family just because you had a bad week. I set the groceries down on the stoop. I didn't abandon anyone, I said quietly. I left a toxic situation. You left responsibilities, he shot back. You left things unfinished. No, I said. You left things unfinished when you used my name to open a credit line, and never told me. When you let me pay your bills, and never offered thanks. When you opened my mail, and laughed at my income like it was yours. His jaw tightened. We're your family, and you treated me like a tool. He scoffed. You think you're the victim? You wouldn't have gotten half of what you have if it wasn't for us. No, I said, stepping past him. You wouldn't have survived the last 3 years if it wasn't for me. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't curse. I didn't even slam the door. But I could tell I hit him where it hurt. Because for the first time in my life, my dad looked speechless. And that was when I knew he wasn't in control anymore. I was. And I wasn't done yet. Because the final step of my plan was going to hit them where it really mattered. Not emotionally.
Not digitally.
But legally. And I had just the thing in motion. I didn't slam the door. I didn't need to. I let it close behind me with the same calm finality I'd learned to carry in every interaction since I left that house. My dad stood outside the building, staring at the locked door like he couldn't quite believe it. Like the same son who used to take his lectures in silence and fix the Wi-Fi at midnight had just told him plainly to leave. And I had. The next morning I brewed coffee in peace and sat at my desk with my laptop, the sunlight soft against my windowsill, and opened the final piece of the plan, the credit dispute form. I had already submitted my initial complaint and documentation weeks ago, but this was the final step. The fraudulent activity box, the sworn statement, the supporting evidence that my name was used without proper consent, that I had been misled under the guise of trust and family. It wasn't just about my credit score anymore. It was about making sure they couldn't do it again. I submitted it and sat back.
Done.
2 weeks later I got the email. The account had been flagged, my name removed, and all negative impact on my credit reversed. The balance reassigned solely to the other party on the account. My dad. He got the notice a few days later. I didn't hear about it directly, of course, but Kara texted me. Did you just make someone cry at the bank? Possibly, I replied. Apparently, he tried to take out a small loan, probably to cover some other overdue bill.
Denied.
Not just because of the missed payments, but because now the full weight of the debt was on him. No shared liability. No fallback plan. He was furious. And powerless. Because this time I wasn't there to fix it. And I wasn't done. I filed an identity protection affidavit with the IRS, flagged my name to prevent further unauthorized filings, and requested a review of any recent tax submissions tied to my social security number. I knew Tyler hadn't filed properly in years, and if he ever tried using my info again to access old documents or refund estimates, he'd hit a wall. Ella's school eventually called to verify the emergency contacts list. I told them to remove me permanently. I'm not available, I said as politely as I could. If her legal guardians need support, they'll have to handle it themselves. It was the first time I said those words out loud. Legal guardians. Not my parents. Not my family.
Just people.
People I used to live with. The fallout came slowly after that. First I got a series of desperate texts from my mom, long ones, emotional ones, some guilt-tripping, some just confused. Mom. Lucas, I don't understand what we did to deserve this. You were always so responsible, so kind. Now you've just disappeared. Mom. Lucas, we're your parents. Doesn't that mean anything anymore? Mom. Lucas, we're struggling here. Tyler hasn't found work. Ella's grades are slipping. Your father is under so much pressure. Please just talk to us. I didn't reply. Because I had talked. I tried for years. They just hadn't listened. The silence was the answer now. Eventually, the tone of the messages changed. Mom. We need your help. Just for a little while. You're doing well. We can tell. It's selfish to hoard success while your family suffers. Mom. Don't think we won't tell people what you did. You left us in the dark, Lucas. People are asking questions.
Don't make us say things we can't take back.
Oh, there it was. Manipulation. Right on schedule. Still, I said nothing. But I did one last thing. A few months prior, I had created a shared drive when I was still handling a lot of the family's tech stuff. Photos, tax files, scanned documents, receipts. It had grown into a kind of digital junk drawer that no one maintained, but everyone relied on. I logged in one final time and wiped everything except one folder. I titled it Contributions. Inside it, I uploaded PDFs of every grocery receipt I ever paid for, every rent payment transfer, screenshots of me fixing bills, screenshots of Ella's old homework I stayed up helping her with when my parents were out, every job I helped Tyler apply to, even a screen-recorded scroll through the email thread showing my dad opening that credit line with my name on it. I included a note. This is what I did for you, not because you deserved it, but because I thought for a long time that love was earned through sacrifice. I don't think that anymore. I hope one day you understand what that means. Then I removed myself as a collaborator. I changed my number shortly after that. A few more weeks passed, and the silence stretched. I rebuilt in peace. My apartment slowly filled with furniture that didn't feel borrowed or temporary. A real bed frame, a dining table, a bookshelf filled with more than just tech manuals. I started hosting casual Friday movie nights with a couple of friends. I didn't have to ask permission. No one asked me to mute the volume or run errands first. I lived fully and quietly for the first time in my adult life. One night I got a call from Kara. "Thought you should know," she said, voice laced with amusement. "Your dad filed a complaint. Claimed you misled the credit agency." I laughed softly.
Of course he did.
"What happened?" "They investigated and found no evidence of fraud. Your statement held. The documents were clear." "Let me guess," I said. "He didn't read the fine print." "Nope. And now he's officially blacklisted from applying for any new joint accounts with your info attached."
Permanently.
I thanked her and hung up. That was the moment I knew it was over. Not just the legal stuff, but the weight. The constant emotional math I used to do to justify staying connected to them. The guilt, the obligation, the hope that maybe, just maybe, they'd change if I gave them one more chance. They wouldn't, but I had. And that had to be enough. Months turned into a year. Then came a wedding invitation. Not mine. Tyler's. Apparently, he'd met someone. Someone with money. The kind of woman who didn't ask questions about past debts if you wore the right watch and talked big. I wasn't invited, of course. But one of our old family friends accidentally sent me a group photo from the reception. There they were.
Mom.
Dad. Ella. And Tyler. Smiling for the camera. Except none of them were standing next to each other. They looked like four strangers who happened to be in the same room. It didn't bring me joy. Not really. But it did bring closure. They built a house out of expectations, control, and silence. And I walked out the front door. I didn't break the windows. I didn't set it on fire. I just turned off the lights and left. And when they realized how much of their comfort depended on me, they called in the dark. But I didn't answer. Because some homes are only homes when you hold the key. And I wasn't coming back. So after hearing all that, what would you have done in my position? Did I go too far? Or was this the only way to finally reclaim my life and my peace? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'm really curious to hear them.